everybody, my name is Holly. Thank you for joining me for today's practice. We are going to do grounding yoga sequence today. So this is going to help create calm and bring some balance back into your life if you've got a lot of stress going on at the moment, so that you feel centered and strong and peaceful. So we're going to start today in a child's pose. So bringing our big toes together, laying our chest down across the thighs, bringing our arms out long in front of us and resting our forehead down onto the mat. And just taking a moment here to settle down, letting those hips feel heavy. Noticing the parts of the body that are connected with the ground, so the palms of the hands, the forearms, the elbows, the shins, the tops of the feet. And just taking this moment of stillness to bring our focus to our breath. So inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Noticing as you inhale, your belly press against the thighs. So taking 2 more rounds of breath here. And on our next inhale, start to lift the chest and come to sitting cross-legged. We'll interlace our fingers, pointing the index finger, and on an inhale, we're just going to lift these hands up towards the ceiling, maybe taking our gaze along with it, opening up into the chest. And as we exhale, we're going to push the palms away from us, rounding through the upper back, chin to chest. And again, inhaling, interlacing the fingers, pointing the index finger and thumb, taking them up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, pushing the palms away from us, rounding through the upper back. And 2 more times, inhaling. Exhaling to round and contract. Final time, inhaling. And as we exhale, pushing the palms away from us. And then releasing from here and coming to our tabletop position. So wrists are directly under the shoulders, knees are directly under the hips, and we'll move through some rounds of cat-cow. So on an inhale, we're going to lift the tailbone, belly drops, chest comes forward. As we exhale, round and contract, chin to chest. Inhale, drop the belly. Exhaling to round and contract. And 2 more times in your own breath. And after your next exhale, coming into a neutral spine. So we're going to bring our right foot in between hands, coming into a low lunge here. So keeping our fingertips on the mat, letting that belly rest down on the thighs, sinking the hips down. You might want to pad the back knee if you're working on a hard floor. Noticing that lengthening down the front of the left thigh. On our next exhale, we're going to start to straighten into this front leg, bringing the toes of the right foot towards you, lengthening down the back of the right leg here. You might need to keep a bend in the knee if your hamstrings are tight, and if it's too much to be folded over the leg, you can always lift the chest. Just do what feels comfortable in your body. On our next inhale, we're going to start to bend into this right knee, coming back into our lunge. You can keep your fingertips on the mat, or this time you might want to lift the chest and bring one hand on top of the other onto the thigh, sinking those hips a little bit deeper. On our next exhale, we're going to start to straighten into this front leg again. Bringing those toes of the right foot back towards the shin, lengthening down the back of this right leg. Maybe you can fold a little bit deeper second time around. our next inhale, starting to bend into this right knee, and then making our way back into our tabletop pose. So we'll go the opposite side, so stepping left foot, in between the hands, coming into our low lunge, keeping our fingers on the mat here, making sure left knee is directly under the ankle, maybe shifting the back knee back and padding it if you need to. Letting those hips feel heavy. Noticing that opening down the front of the right thigh, up into the hip flexor. On our next exhale, we're going to start to straighten into this left leg, bringing those toes back towards the shin, keeping a bend into this left knee if you need to. You don't need to keep your palms flat on the mat, you can stay on tented fingertips here. It's just that I've got long monkey arms, and that's why I can bring my hands down onto the mat. On our next inhale, we're going to start to bend into the knee, coming back into the low lunge. You can keep your fingertips on the mat, or if you want to, you can start to lift the chest, bring one hand on top of the other on the thigh, sinking those hips a little deeper. On our next exhale, start to straighten into this left leg, bringing those toes back towards the shin, noticing if you can stretch a little bit deeper second time around. On our next inhale, start to straighten into this left leg, coming back into our tabletop pose. And from here, we're going to make our way into our first downward facing dog. So walking our hands slightly forward in the shoulders, fingertips blade wide, tucking those toes under, our feet a hip width distance apart. On our next exhale, send those hips up and back into our downward facing dog. So looking for length in the spine here, you can definitely keep a bend in the knees if you need to. You might want to pedal out the feet, you might want to wave the hips from side to side, just do whatever movement feels good in your body today. Pressing down through the fingertips and knuckles of the hands, holding no tension in the neck. Gazes towards the back of the mat. And then coming into some stillness here. Don't worry if the heels are lifted off the mat, it's absolutely fine. And on our next inhale, starting to walk our feet up towards the hands. And then coming into a ragdoll fold here, so feet to hip width distance apart, keeping a deep bend in those knees if you need to, laying the chest down across the thighs, letting those fingertips dangle down to the mat, or maybe taking hands into opposite crooks of the elbows, letting the crown of the head feel heavy. Just lengthening all the way down the back of the body, maybe swaying gently from side to side. And then from here, we're going to make our way into Tadasana, so pressing into the heels, keeping a bend in the knees. So we're going to slowly roll all the way up the spine, bringing our shoulders up in line with the ears, rolling them back and down. Palms are facing forward, lengthening that tailbone down, crown of the head is lifted. Noticing the ground beneath us, pressing through the toes, pressing through the heels. From here, we'll move into chair pose. You can keep your feet hip width distance apart, or bringing big toes together, heels slightly apart, palms together at heart center, starting to take a bend in the knees as we sit down into our imaginary chair. So finding length in the spine here, feeling lifted into the chest, so making sure you're not arching through the spine. If you want to, you can reach those arms up overhead, gazing towards the fingers. Palms are facing in towards each other. Hugging those thighs and knees in towards each other. Lengthening that tailbone down. Maybe bending a little bit deeper into the knees as we lift through the upper body. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to start to straighten into the legs, coming into a forward fold. Option here to take peace fingers around the toes,
Keep a deep bend in those knees if you need to. Letting that crown of the head feel heavy. Releasing the lower back. On our next inhale, we're going to come into standing, so start to roll all the way up the spine. Weight is in the heels, and we're going to come into tree pose. So we're bringing the left sole of the foot either to the ankle, the calf, or the inner thigh. Letting that left knee roll open, our hips and our chest are facing forward, palms together at heart center. Feeling strong in that standing leg, engaging the kneecap on the right leg. Taking your focus point to something that isn't going to move. If you want to give yourself some branches on an inhale, we're going to take our arms up towards the ceiling and then separate those palms. On our next exhale, bringing our palms back together, down through heart center. We're going to take this left foot back, coming into pyramid pose. So taking it back about a foot, heel is down, toes are off on a 40-degree ankle. We want our hips facing forward, so you can either be aligned heel to heel, or you can widen your stance slightly to make the pose more comfortable. Hands onto the waist, inhale as we lift. As we exhale, we're going to start to fold down halfway, so coming into a flat back, reaching that crown of the head forward. Noticing if your right hip is popping out to the side, tuck it in. If you want to go a little bit deeper, we can start to fold over this front leg. Maybe bringing our hands down onto the mat, where you can rest them on the shin. You can keep a bend in this knee if your hamstrings are feeling super tight. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to start to walk our hands around to the long edge of the mat, turning our toes to point forwards, maybe heel toe, those feet out to widen the stance, coming into our wide-legged fold. So maybe you want to take peace fingers around the toes or hold onto the ankles so we can draw our chest a little bit closer towards the thighs, releasing down the backs of the legs here. Pressing those soles of the feet down into the mat. And then bringing those palms down onto the mat and lifting into a flat back. Bringing our hands onto our waist. As we inhale, we're going to lift the chest. We're going to turn our right toes to point to the top of the mat, bending into knee, coming into our warrior two. So arms out at shoulder height, shoulders directly over the hips. Rolling that right knee and thigh open. Pressing down evenly through both feet. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to cartwheel this back hand up and over, bringing the hands down to frame the front foot and coming back into a plank pose. We'll move through a vinyasa, exhaling, bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down to the mat, untucking those toes, inhaling into cobra, bringing those elbows in towards the ribs, shoulders are down away from the ears. Feeling that lengthening down the front of the body. Exhaling to lower, making our way into downward facing dog. On our next inhale, bending into the knees, stepping up towards the hands,
coming into our half lift, our flat back, so palms onto shins or fingertips on the mat. Exhale into lower. Inhale, circling our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead. Exhale, bring our hands down through heart center. So we'll move to the opposite side, coming into chair pose. You can keep your feet hip width distance apart or big toes together, heels slightly apart, bending into the knees, sitting down into our imaginary chair. Finding length in the spine here. If you want to, you can reach your arms up overhead, gazing towards the hands, palms facing in towards each other. Pressing into the heels of the feet. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, start to straighten into the legs, coming into our forward fold. Interlacing fingers around the big toes is an option if you want to take it. Noticing if these legs are feeling a little bit straighter the more forward folds that we're doing. Letting that crown of the head feel heavy. Releasing those toes if you've got the fingers around them. On an inhale, we're going to roll up the spine to standing. And coming into our tree pose, so bringing right sole of the foot either to the ankle, the calf, or the inner thigh. Letting that right knee roll open as our hips and chest are facing forward, palms together at heart center. Grounding down to the earth with our standing leg. If you want to give this tree some branches, on an inhale, taking our arms up towards the ceiling and then bringing those hands apart. If you're working on carpet, you might notice that you're feeling quite wobbly. Taking one more inhale here as we exhale, bringing our palms together, down through heart center. We'll make our way into pyramid. So we're going to step this right leg back about a foot, planting the heel down, toes off on a 40-degree ankle. We want our hips facing towards the top of the mat, so you can bring your heels hip width distance apart or be aligned heel to heel, whatever's comfortable in your body. Inhale, lift and lengthen out of the waist. As we exhale, folding down halfway to a flat back. Having a quick check to make sure this left hip hasn't popped out to the side. You can stay here, or if you want to fold down over this front leg on the next exhale, start to fold the chest down, bringing our hands down onto the mat, maybe resting them onto the shin, holding onto the ankle. You can keep a micro bend in this left knee if you need to. Taking one more inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to start to walk our hands around, coming into our wide-legged fold. So feet are pointing to the long edge of the mat. You might want to heel toe the feet out to give yourself some space. Just letting that crown of the head feel heavy. Releasing from the lower back here. Maybe holding onto the ankles or bringing peace fingers around the toes. And then bringing our palms down onto the mat. Inhaling, coming into a flat back. And then bringing our hands onto our waist. Inhaling to lift the chest. Turning our left toes to point to the top of the mat. Bending into the left knee. We're coming into our warrior two. Arms out at shoulder height. Gazes over the middle finger of the left hand. Feeling strong in both legs here. relaxed exhale, we're cartwheeling this back hand up and over, bringing the hands to frame this front foot, stepping back into plank, moving through a vinyasa. Exhaling to lower all the way down. Inhaling into cobra. Exhaling to lower, making our way into downward facing dog. From here, we're going to start to walk our hands back towards the feet, coming into another forward fold. This time you've got an option to take a gorilla grip, so you can bring your palms of the hands underneath the feet with the toes pressing up towards the wrists. You can take any variation of forward fold that you prefer though, so if you want to take peace fingers around the toes, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to keep a deep bend in those knees, you can do that too. And then releasing from our forward fold, we're going to heel to our feet to mat width distance apart, with our heels in, our toes out. We're going to start to take a bend into the knees, coming into malasana. So coming down as low as is comfortable for you, bringing those elbows to the insides of the knees, noticing how far you can drop the hips. Don't worry if your heels are lifted, you can use a block if you've got one. I forgot to bring one out before I started recording, I'm afraid. So feeling broad across the chest, pressing the elbows into the knees, opening into the hips. If this is too much, you can release from here back into a fold, straightening the legs, and then coming back down into malasana. We're not here for long. One more inhale here as we exhale, releasing those hips down, bringing the legs out long. We'll make our way into a forward fold. So keeping a bend in those knees if you need to, bringing those toes back towards the shins. Inhale, we're going to lift and lengthen, and as we exhale, taking a fold over the legs, only folding down as far as is comfortable for you. So you can reach those hands around to the soles of the feet, you can take peace fingers around the toes, you can hold on to the shins, reaching that crown of the head towards the feet, lengthening all the way down the back of the body here. On our next inhale, we'll release and lift the chest. So we're going to come into a half hero fold here. So we're going to bend into the left knee and bring the top of the foot down onto the mat with the heel against the left hip. If this is way too much for you, you can just bring the sole of the foot against the right leg with the knee out to the side. And we'll take a fold over this straight leg. So inhale as we lift and lengthen. As we exhale, taking a fold down over this right leg. Noticing if you can fold a little bit deeper towards the end of our practice. Really lengthening down the back of this right leg at this pose. On our next inhale, starting to lift the chest, and we'll release this left leg, and we'll do this on the right side. So bending into this right knee and bringing the sole of the foot down on top of the foot down onto the mat with the heel against the right hip. If it's too much, go with the sole of the foot against the left leg with the knee out to the side. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhaling to take a fold down over the straight leg. Remember, you can keep micro bends in the knees if your hamstrings are feeling tight. next inhale, starting to lift the chest. Releasing this right leg. We're going to bring our hips forward so we've got enough room to lie down behind us. Soles of the feet down on the mat, bending into the knees, reaching the arms out long. And slowly with control, we're going to start to roll all the way down the spine until we bring our shoulders and heads down onto the mat. And then bringing our heels in towards the sitting bones, arms down long so we can brush the backs, the heels with our fingertips maybe. And we'll move through some bridge rolls. On an inhale, start to lift the hips, rolling all the way up the spine, bringing the chest in towards the chin. So gluing those feet down into the earth as we lift those hips, drawing those thighs and knees in towards each other. Letting the upper body feel relaxed. On an exhale, we're going to start to roll down the spine until we bring our hips back down onto the mat. And we'll go a second time. On an inhale, starting to lift the hips, rolling up the spine, bringing the chest in towards the chin. This time you've got an option to start to shrug the shoulder blades in towards each other and interlace your fingers on the mat so we can push those hips a little bit higher. On our next exhale, releasing the hands, releasing the shoulder blades, and rolling all the way down the spine until we bring our hips back down onto the mat. And we'll just move our knees from side to side, releasing the lower back here. And then bringing our knees in towards the chest. And you can bring your arms out to shoulder height or cactus the arms if you don't have the room. On our next exhale, we're going to drop our knees down to the left as our gaze comes over to the right, taking a little twist here. Do whatever you need to make the legs feel more comfortable. So maybe you want to make a fist with this left hand and just place it underneath the left knee, or using a block to plug the gap between the knee and the floor. Maybe you want to take your left hand on top of the right thigh and just weight those knees down. Feeling broad across the chest and making sure that right shoulder stays connected with the mat. On our next inhale, engaging that core as we bring our knees back through to center. And on our next exhale, we're going to drop our knees down to the right, making sure you've got enough room. And our gaze over to the left. Making sure that left shoulder stays down on the mat. Making any adjustments that you need to with the legs. On our next inhale, engage that core as we bring our knees back through to center, and then wrapping our arms around our shins, taking our nose up towards the knee, curving ourselves into a little ball here, and exhaling so we lower our head and neck back down, and then bring our legs out long, coming into a shavasana. Just a short little shavasana for a minute or two, with our feet to each corner of the mat, letting our toes roll out wide, arms down long beside us, palms facing up towards the ceiling. Relaxing the face, and noticing what parts of the body are connected with the earth. So the heels, the calves, the glutes, the mid-back, upper back, shoulders, backs of the arms, elbows, knuckles of the hands, and back of the head. you can hit pause here if you want a longer shavasana. Everybody else, start to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes, bring some movement back into the body. And then slowly, we're going to bring one knee in towards the chest, and then the other. And we can roll to whatever side is comfortable for you. And taking a moment here, keeping those eyes closed. And then pushing ourselves up into a seated position. Bringing our left hand onto the heart, right hand on top. Give yourselves thanks for making the time to get on your mat today. I hope this practice has made you feel grounded and rooted and strong. And then bringing our palms together at heart centre, bowing forehead to fingertips. Thank you. Thanks for joining me today. It's a bit of a slow practice. Thank you. Bye.